Welcome back to the AI Value Paradox podcast. I'm your host, and today we find ourselves standing directly at the center of a $2 trillion enterprise execution crisis. The year is 2026, and while spending on digital infrastructure is skyrocketing, organizations are consistently watching their innovations get rejected before they ever have a chance to scale. At Kategos, we know that you cannot overlay tomorrow's intelligence onto yesterday's pre-AI structural frameworks. To break this cycle of diminished impact, leaders must stop treating deployment as a pure technology challenge and start treating it as a human adoption challenge. Today, we are heading into the engine room to unpack how to transform a failing digital experiment into a human-centric powerhouse, and why raw AI is ultimately an engine without a steering wheel. Joining the conversation to deliver the blueprint is Ravi Sawhney, founder of RKS Design and PAAI. Let's dive in.
Organizations today, Ravi, they're falling behind, and CEOs and C-suites is really trying to adopt AI. And everybody's looking to build something meaningful and looking to get the value. All the new systems are built on pre-AI systems. And then I think the innovation is being rejected before it even has a chance to scale it. And that's the paradox that we are talking about. More intelligence, less impact, primarily due to the systems. To break this cycle, we have to stop treating this cycle as a tech problem and start treating it as more like a human problem. So I'm joined today by the person who literally wrote the playbook on this translation. Ravi Sawhney, founder of RKS Design. Welcome to our studio.
Thank you. Very glad to be here.
Ravi, you spent 45 years pioneering the bridge between the human emotion and machine logic. You've been an architect behind psychoaesthetics, a framework that is transformational for aspects of user experience into a precise, scalable engineering science. So, quick question to you right off the bat. Are we moving beyond the hype, or are we ready for AI?
Now, you have to admit that AI is in some ways novel. It's exciting. There's all the buzz about it. And I believe from what I've seen and what happened with my own personal experience is that the novelty and the excitement has started to wear off very, very quickly, because while AI is generating answers and it generates great questions, it doesn't know where to go, doesn't know why to go there. It's everything, of course, it by the nature of being an LLM has to be derivative. It has to be based on whatever it's fed. And I think for that reason, it's becoming less and less empowering to us as users. We're ready for it. The question is, are we ready for it? What I've seen, that the outcome is not necessarily forward-looking, predictive in the way that it can give you a compass as to where people are going, or as I say, how do you motivate someone to do something new for themselves they might otherwise not do? That the word new is a very deep word in terms of design and human interaction. It could be incremental, new, and that might suffice, or it could be disruptively new. AI is a cultural business disruptor in many ways, but on the other side, there's a lot of noise without clear signal. And what I've discovered early on, before we started developing PAAI, is that the signal is not driven by where my life's work is, which is the human interaction and human interaction meanings. Starting with people's emotions, aspirations, their need states, their on and on. So the answer is, yeah, we're ready for AI. We're doing something about making sure that AI is ready for us.
That's awesome. I wanted to quickly touch bases on psychoaesthetics, which acts as the missing infrastructure for AI, as per you. How can you turn your digital strategy from a failing experiment into more human-centric powerhouse. And you talked about let's focus on humans and less on AI at the moment. So how do you kind of bridge that gap?
With great complexity and thousands of hours of work to actually develop the signal, and more or equally important to developing the signal, which means translating knowledge, insight, data feeds, interviews, on and on, um, from visuals into actual written signal. Has that has taken us uh, almost a year now with a large team to do. So psychosthetics, the beauty of psychosthetics is that, as I said in 1982, it's not how you feel about a designer experience, it's how it makes you feel about yourself. That methodology, which is a repeatable, scalable, prescription to develop the insight, the knowledge, the empathy, everything you need to do something to help other people, has proven out to be very successful. And translating that into digital signal for AI has literally taken us, I think we're well over 500 schema prompts that are sequentially linked. We develop the platform, and then within that platform, we generate the psychostatic assets. But can't forget that it is garbage in, garbage out. So one of the things that's important is that if you're going to be human centered and you're going to be human driven, you need to talk to people, and you can't let AI imagine what the conversation is with people. So you need to gather as much information, and you need to and you should really get one-on-one with people. Now, with that said, our technology can do things like you can just throw an idea into it, and it will blow your mind as far as how it analyzes through psychosthetics. Of course, we've in our technology, we've built it on deck after deck after deck. You know, probably 30. I would say about 30 years worth of uh, of psychosthetic decks to get to where you can do that. So it'll generate an SPS score. When we launch in about a month or less than a month, we're actually going to allow people to generate an SPS score on ideas as a test. If they want to get a full psychoaesthetic report, that's something else. But SPS meaning success potential score, which basically takes all of the psychoaesthetics, the human meaning. It takes the personas. It takes the help me statements, the need states. Takes our mapping. I, yeah, I get very deep into this. I get very excited about this course because it's my life's work. But essentially, we have been able to take our mapping, which is an XY. It's an XY map, and eventually we'll do an XYZ map. But we map, levels of interaction and self-actualization, and develop the white space. So we're able to map, and we're able to do that within the app, and show trajectories of white space, so that, as a friend of mine used to say, we need to go fishing where the fish are and where no one else is fishing, which is a nice way of saying find the white space. But our white space determination is based on how people want to evolve. It's based on personas, understanding them, and yeah, it's beautiful to see it in action on the app. We've run in our cohort. We've run over 200 modules with 50 users.
If I may ask you, like, how is your 30-year of knowledge or database is actually helping you Or how is AI translating that into the newer designs that you're discussing, you're talking about, or solutions we're looking at? You obviously started your journey 45 years back. I mean, you talked about, I believe you had some participation early days at the Xerox PARC. I'm sure you got to touch some of those fantastic gadgets and where we are right now. And how is your design build and how is your psychoaesthetics translating via AI compared to how it was human led versus AI led?
So twofold. One is that RKS Design uses a blend of both. So it'll use PAAI in combination with its own knowledge and wisdom and experience and expand on it. And so that's how RKS does it. With that, those materials are then output into visuals. And so there are team briefs, there are the visuals, and those visuals are then put into very traditional, into large posters, into a war room, and that war room becomes the immersive environment in which we then go into creation mode, which means that a team of us get together and brainstorm, but all based on psychosetics, talking to the persona as if they're real people, talking about them as they're real people. Now, that's how we do it as a design firm. As a person who is a business planner, a strategist, an entrepreneur, an in-house product development team, they can do that, or they can take the reports that we generate and the psychosetics that we generate, and they can use them for team briefs. They can use them for the narrative. They can use them as the compass in both visual format and written format. It's shocking for me to say this, but as we do them, it has been a force multiplier beyond belief. From where we started a year ago to what we're doing today, the force multiplier is absolutely mind blowing and amazing. And that means that instead of spending 6 months in developing a strategy, a roadmap, an analysis in a week, we can basically generate all the material we need to feed our minds. The key is that I don't believe, and it's yet to be seen, that if I think of AI as a robot, that it can generate something new and inspirational in the long term. Subtlety of human senses is something that has to be seen and engaged with and experienced. This is where human interaction lies. We live in the subtlety and the nuance that we can't articulate. Now, as designers, that's the space we live in. We create those subtleties and those nuances that bond with people, but they don't necessarily have the ability to articulate.
How is AI replacing that human touch, the human connection, the whole psychoaesthetics, which really works well with humans, but may not be perceived or driven the same way by AI? But again, just a little bit for our audience, how do these two connect? And what have you seen other than the productivity, what do you call gains that you have seen using AI internally?
Yeah,
How do you see this kind of correlating?
yeah. AI can be an efficiency product and a force multiplier on its own as far as gaining efficiencies. Being on the interaction side, what we believe is that it is not about efficiency, it is about creating deeper, more meaningful engagement and reducing the risk of failure by understanding everything you need to know. So, one of the things that I haven't pointed out is that once we build the cyclostatic foundation, which is incredibly deep and rich, then we start going through all of the business modules, and then getting to the point of even where we start studying the market and the market messaging. We look at and pretty much everything you would need to execute. I guess I look at it this way is that there's the ingestion, that the more quality you have that you can put into PAAI, the richer and the more sound the PA foundation is. And then it becomes about execution. So when you look at it that way, that it's not about creating higher levels of efficiency, it's really about creating higher levels of profitability and EV and consumer adoption and really following through on what we see as the essence of human interaction. And when I say that is that how do you build a brand? How do you build belonging? How do you build emotional moats so that consumers bond with your brand and your products in ways that are so profoundly deep that it creates new levels of meaning? And part of psychosthetics is our adoption and interpretation of Campbell's work in the hero's journey. So again, these are the tools that we've created that leverage, as I say, and I might have said this already, AI is an engine. What we've built is a steering wheel. And in that way, we can do things like follow the hero's journey. So we don't look at it as efficiency, we look at it as cognitive enhancement that fuels higher levels of meaning, creativity, and relevance for creating something new for people that relate to them, increase the quality of life in one way or another. We're working from products on the bottom of the pyramid all the way up to luxury products. In each case, we use psychosthetics to suss out the deeper meaning of what really is going on in people's kind of heads and hearts. And we want to own there. We want to really create brands, products, services, and meaning that is so strong that it does connect with your mind and your heart and ultimately makes you feel good about yourself. And I'm not a psychologist. My friends who were psychologists say, Ravi, you're a backyard psychologist. And no, I'm just a designer who understands that everything is human factors. If you follow the hero's journey, what we do is that, and this is all laced into PAAI, is that we take the experience through the attraction, the refusal. We use design to attract. We address the refusal. Then we take it through and design in micro affirmations, meaning that you got to have a whole series of wins depending on what you're doing. And it could be a long series of micro wins and affirmations that lead to an adoption. And when you have an adoption, meaning you adopt a new idea, you adopt a new product, a new service, a new piece of software, a new app, whatever, then you have the moment of truth, which is now you need that high level of self affirmation. When you have that moment of truth, that makes you feel good about yourself. And in some cases, it makes you feel good enough about yourself that you start telling other people about it. And that's the design of viral demand.
You're kind of doubling down on your, I think, mini med insulin pump story, which was basically not really a technical upgrade. It was more like a psychological revolution. And similarly, in today's day and age, right, when a leader looks at a failing heavy digital infrastructure, how do they know if they need to better code, better get the technology upgraded, or they just simply need to fix their human connection? How relevant is that human connection as we move forward with AI?
It always will be everything because for everything that AI can do, and I shouldn't say everything. I mean, if it's advancing its own technology, I guess then it's its own consumer, which obviously is occurring. But for the rest of the billions of us, it has to have relevance and it has to have meaning. And so if you're in failure mode or you're losing traction within your market, and you're opening up the door for someone to reinvent what you're doing. I believe you always have to go right back to the people who are going to decide, who are going to adopt, understanding the channel decisions and each person's hero's journey and each person's need states. And we translate need states into help me statements. And you've got to go right back to basics, don't you? It's the people who are going to, you know, adopt or reject, or potentially adopt and reject later on. And then there's just the human need for constant evolution. So many companies we've seen over the 45 years that RKS has been in business that flourished and didn't reinvent themselves and couldn't keep up with people. We as people change so rapidly because we are taking in everything that's thrown at us. All goes in and forms this emotional content, which is a filter for us to accept or reject. And technology follows. If you can look around the corner, as we do with PAAI, then you can be there when people get there, or hopefully not too far ahead of people, which we've done, where we're ahead of the curve and people weren't ready for the advancement of technology. And we've seen that. I mean, virtual reality was a big excitement 30 years ago, I believe. And then the fascination went away because the actual interaction wasn't quite there. So the novelty wore off. So yeah, if you're a company that's seeing a downturn, I would say you're late to the game. You've got to do something to anticipate how people are going to evolve, and you've got to continually reinvent yourself. Or as I say, and have said for decades, people say, and I agree, that if you don't reinvent yourself, someone's going to do it for you.
Absolutely right. And it's so funny that with the design and the concept to build, or from design to build, as the time to execution has shortened so much, because now all of these iterations that you can run are, I mean, your timing is definitely like a huge, let's call it a saving grace for most of the companies when it comes to time spent on execution, iteration, and build, right? I mean, how do you see that manufacturing companies or design companies are going to benefit from this evolution of this really new age technology that we are looking to adopt and really can't be living without? And what is your message to the C-suite out there who are already too late to the game?
I would definitely tell them that most organizations think AI is a technology challenge. In our eyes, in reality, it's an adoption challenge. What we're doing with our technology and psychosthetics, PAAI, is really to help the leaders in business understand what people will trust, what they'll embrace, what they'll share. And so it's a conversation that I think that all business leaders are going to get to very, very quickly, because it's like this is a tool. I say I look at AI as an engine without a steering wheel.
So, I'm very heavily influenced by, I love Peter Diamandis and his books and everything that he does, writes, obviously, great people, always influence. And one thing he uses is like MTP, your massive transformative purpose for the design of age of AI. For the leaders around the world who are listening to us and want to evolve past this pre-AI DNA today, what are the 3 steps to inject predictable magic into their development life cycle immediately?
I would say to test it and look into really what psychosthetics is and the reasons that Harvard teaches it, that Wharton teaches it. I would say how you can leverage it in a way that enhances your own cognitive and creative ability to build relevance. The way we have a new website going up, I believe today, that's going to show the free trial. So people can try it. They can see what it can do for them without any risk, a little bit of time. And then the light will go on. Typically, we see immediate gratification, call it, that you can try it before you buy it and you can see what it can do. Take a couple minutes out of your day and see what it can do, and then go ahead and do what everybody's going to do is go into Claude, go into chat, go into whatever your AI is, and see what it does, and then come back and take a look and see that this is exponentially more relevant and more meaningful, with greater depth and greater ability for you to execute on. And at that point, it's not the challenge of can you do it yourself? Could you, which is impossible. I mean, could you write 500 schema prompts sequentially linked, which is a patent pending process anyway? But could you do that and then generate the meaning based on 45 years of commercial success and disruptive success in many markets? Why would you even challenge it? Just jump on and do a better job for yourself and your company, because it's an incredible tool and my life's work, but you don't have to believe me.
You brought up patents, and I wanted to just quickly go back to a quick conversation on patents. You've been named on about 500 plus patents. So the IP in the new era of AI, how defensible is it as we go forward? If you want to just quickly share that.
So when we talk about IP, it's broader than just the patents. The patents, the patents are defensible only to the level that you can defend them, and people will respect them and decide that it's healthier and better to access what someone's providing rather than to try to steal what they've done. But then you also have the copyright protection. There are law firms now that are going after people who have uploaded and ingested copyright protected materials. The intellectual property also goes to the trade secrets. We have built our technology with a multitude of trade secrets as far as how we're doing things. So we have our secret sauce. And eventually we'll use more traditional methods, which are trade dress, meaning that don't look like us just by changing your name and jumping into our area of value creation. So it's primarily copyright protection, the patents, which are yet to be seen as far as how defensible they are. We're looking pretty good on the patents. One of the first things that I did was file provisionals to non-provisional patents to protect the methodology and the technology of how we're doing things. But then you've got the trade secrets, of course. At the end of the day, what's the safest route for someone? It's probably not to try to steal somebody else's technology.
Gotcha. Now, which brings the question of data sovereignty, sovereign AI, which is being talked about by Jensen. And a lot of NVIDIA is big on building on prem and more sovereign systems. How do you feel about your data leaving RKS system and going out to the world? Or do you have those guardrails and do you have that governance set up in place to ensure that none of the systems and methodologies or the trade secrets leave RKS? And it doesn't spill into the large language world out there. How do you protect that? And what is your view of sovereign systems?
So what we've done is built up the guardrails so that no one can actually see how we're doing what we're doing. And then we output the relevant documents for them. So we've designed that in very carefully from the beginning so that trade secrets, a lot of them would never be apparent, even if someone stole all 500 schemas. But the schemas themselves and the interlinking of them are not visible to the user. That's all working in the background, and that all works in our cloud. The other side is that yeah, we're pulling from the LLM into into PAAI, but we are not putting anything out into the LLMs. And that goes for the user. We've had users who have ingested their full data room on large corporations, people we work with, and that is all kept confidential. Even we don't see it as PAAI. That stays with the user. It's in their access only, and that remains also completely confidential. So you can really ingest confidential information into PAAI without ever having to worry about it being shared or distributed into an LLM.
Wonderful. So, Ravi, you mentioned a new website going out live, and you mentioned PA.ai a couple of times. You want to talk to our audience about PAI and your new website, and of course, let the world maybe give a little bit of insight into that.
I guess the snapshot is that it starts with 45 years of creating commercial success from everything from, yes, Minimed to Lego to Amgen to Thermo Fisher to Intel, the list, and Apple, and the list goes on and on of how the same velocity methodology that was learned by me at Xerox in the 70s has created profound success, and I would say consistency in risk management for companies. At the end of the day, risk management may be what this is all about. The cost of developing something new is phenomenal. Mistakes early on can lead to company collapse and failure in the marketplace. That's the table stakes. That's the starting place. It's taking 45 years of work and then eventually became a Harvard case study, Harvard exercise, a Wharton business book, multiple publications by myself, but more importantly is hundreds of psychoaesthetic decks that led to these successes that stay confidential. And then it created a tool that everyone can pick up and use. And I wouldn't want to say that we can do what McKinsey can do in days or Bain or BCG. You have to see it for yourself. But it is a different animal and it is readily accessible. So, what RKS Design does for its clients now becomes infinitely scalable. And my goal is, or my dream, or my vision, or both, is that with such a high failure rate of new ventures and new initiatives being as high as 80% or more, is that we can move the needle on that. Can we change it by 10%? Can we change it by 20, 30, 40%? If you do that for a company, you do that for an entrepreneur, that just makes the world more efficient.
You're doing it for the whole ecosystem.
Absolutely. The complete ecosystem, and we generate content that normally we would never see or get from even major corporations. And it's an eye opener. Literally you're learning things up front that in the past you're 9 months, a year and a half into a project and it gets canceled, because if you knew those things in the beginning, that it would have changed the course of what you're doing. I was just going to close with, then it's the ability for PAAI that as you move forward is to monitor and ingest and adopt new criteria, whether it's new IP, new litigation, new competitive offerings, changes in the landscape, that you can constantly stay current. You assemble a team of 50 people and get them into one room once a year. What if you can do that daily, weekly, monthly?
Is it absolutely? So, are we okay to say that we are also, I mean, that 10% saving could be a huge, huge game changer, right? You just said a number of, that's 10% of failed products, failed executions. So, I mean, is it okay to say that the time to failure is now shortened due to the time to execution ability, bringing AI
I, I,
into the mix?
I believe so. That is going to be the true outcome of what we've done. And the numbers of the cost of failures globally is in excess of $2 trillion, and that's the fear. That's the fear that we all lived with in when I was at Xerox so long ago, almost 50 years ago, is the fear that we deal with every day. Is that on one hand we're building uh, the emotional content and the ability to create brand and mass adoption. But in the background is always, what if I make a mistake? There's 1,000 pitfalls. Any one of them, any one of them could destroy your potential success. And that means that it slows down the process. That means that the cost of development is increased and the risk of failure is high. So, yeah, we're talking about a global change in the actual infrastructure of how you do something. That's probably because beyond being a designer, I'm an entrepreneur and have incubated companies. I've always had to deal with, yeah, that's great that we've got this front end and that can lead to great design innovation, design awards, over 500 patents, over 200 design awards. But commercial success is what it's all about, is doing something that, as I say, nothing happens till somebody buys something. And with 80+% failure, absolutely, we're going to move. We believe we're going to move that needle and move it significantly.
Gotcha. One of the best design guys I know out there, I mean, the world knows, is Steve Jobs, right? He had some of the best designs, ideas, and we still, like, to this date, I mean, live and practice everything that he has left us. If Steve Jobs was alive today, what would he say about AI? Since you're a design guy, he's a product guy, you're a product guy. So let's hear it from, the similar minds.
Off the cuff, I would say he'd probably say, you know, great technology. I know what to do with it. I think that would be as short and sweet as he would get to it. He wouldn't tell you what he's going to do. He would just look at it and say, great technology. I know what to do with this. And then he would probably leave the room and get to work and create something phenomenal.
That's as simple as it gets and as pointed as it gets, right? I remember he mentioned about multiple times on building something innovative. And he said, I always like to think 20 years ahead.
Yeah,
And do you think AI is thinking 20 years ahead?
I think it will. I think it will. It will if we're successful. If not, no, because there's no navigation tool. There's no direction. And so it'll find its niche applications. Phenomenal at contract reviews, phenomenal at derivative solutions, phenomenal at accessing a universe of information and data. It will have its value, but nothing like what it could do, because it's not, and there may be others out there doing what we're doing, probably not with 45 years of track record and assets that they're able to ingest. I've been very open about what we're doing, and I'm happy to see other people jump into the arena. The conversation is starting now about, yeah, this is a great tool. Now, what can I do about it? Because I've got to do something for people, not just reduce the number of jobs in my organization. Reducing cost, of course, which is now debatable because of just the cost of the tokens has gotten so far out of control for people. But yeah, if it can create, or I would say for any technology, that it's potential, right? And if we take that potential and we create adoption, that creates value. So
Absolutely. So let's talk about domain expertise versus tacit knowledge, participants in the future of AI. How do you think they tie into everything that we do, and how important it is for us to, one, have the domain knowledge and build on the tacit knowledge?
you have to have the domain knowledge. That is fundamental. Interesting is that two phenomenons is that Tacit knowledge really uncovers things that you need to know, that people may not even realize they know, but that are extremely valuable. And some of the techniques that will still be employed and can't be displaced include ethnography, primary research. Domain knowledge through AI can be great for secondary knowledge, but the primary understanding and insights gained through ethnography. And the way we do our ethnography, because we do it all ourselves, we've done probably over 4,000 one-on-one interviews globally, is that we use stimuli to evoke that tacit knowledge. So one of the things that's beautiful about design is that when you see something visual, it evokes recall at a much higher level. And if it's done in the right way, and it's done in a way that as you're interviewing the person, you make them feel empowered, you bring forward tacit knowledge. It's a beautiful thing when it happens, and you have to know how to make that happen. That's why I don't believe it's possible for any AI to replace the one-on-one ethnography, interviews, testing. When we do it, we don't do surveys, we do one-on-one interviews, we don't do focus groups. We watch everything. We watch how long they hesitate to answer a question. We watch their eyes, we watch their body language, and we listen to their answers very carefully. And then we drill down and start asking, why do you feel this way? So it's a beautiful thing when you can take that and you can build that into your strategy and your methodology, your tactical execution, and the foundation for creativity, design, innovation. But that's the human side.
I like that. And I wanted to continue to go that path. Now, let's talk about creativity. You guys are design build guys. You got some wonderful products, really recognized names out there. Let's talk about design, creativity, and critical thinking. Is AI creative?
Is it creative? No, it's derivative. And the reason I say that is that it can generate answers. It can tell me that if I took 5 steps to the door based on all of its learnings, that I'm probably going to take another 5 steps and walk through the door. We, as designers and innovators, as business leaders, we need to know why you want to go through the door and what would you love to see on the other side of that door.
So the context is very critical for AI to even do any creative decision making.
Well, we talk about the cognitive surrender of the answers, but yes, I would say that because everything has to be by the very nature of what an LLM is derivative. So it can show you things you didn't know, and but without the foundational work of what we're doing, you can't leverage that in the context of predicting human behavior and looking around the corner and fueling that creative inspiration that we as humans look for. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. We're always looking to evolve. That's just human nature. Looking to always evolve and enriching our lives in new and meaningful ways. We talk about why was MiniMed a failing company, and when we turned it around through design, how did they explode from their sales had dropped by 50%, I think from 60 million to 30 million. And 3 years later, they were almost at 300 million, and then sold for 3.6 billion. And the only change that we made was to design. And what we did is we did something that was profoundly different. We actually were the diabetic infusion pumps pumping saline and became the diabetic ourselves as a team. And we wore the diabetic fusion pumps 24 hours a day. And it's a great story because what we did is that by doing that, when we went out to have lunch, we would take out our insulin pump to give ourselves a bolus of insulin. The invisible unarticulated stigma that was created was that when you took this overtly medical device out and you gave yourself this bolus, people would look at you. People would like look at you, they might whisper, you felt that you felt that in your skin, that people didn't want to be around you, that they thought you were contagious, they thought something, they were fearing for their own health and well-being. They didn't know what's going on. And that was part of the reason that the actual patients were denying the diabetic infusion pump. Something that would increase your quality and length of life, and you deny it because of you anticipate that people are going to look at you like you're ill, was an amazing and profound discovery in our work. And what we did at the time is that we, working within the 510K approval process, we transformed what looked like a medical device into something that looked like a pager, looked like a hip, cool pager. Now, when you went into a restaurant and you took it out in public to give yourself a bolus of insulin, it looked like you were reading a page. Nobody noticed that there's a catheter, that there's this thin plastic catheter that's connected to you. It just looked normal. Could AI have ever told us that? No, but it could have told us other things. But that's where creativity and design and brilliance really starts to shine. The most brilliant creativity comes when you get more and more constraints. If you ask someone the blue sky and say you're creative because you just come up with these wild, incredible ideas, that's great. But if you have to make something for a large audience that has meaning and value, you end up building more and more constraints. And when you get those, that's where I think the real brilliant minds come to life. And I get very excited about this because when I've taught, and I don't teach anymore, but I lecture, I found that as I built the psychoaesthetics and the foundation, and it increased the creative people's ability to ingest information, understand all of these things, that their creativity was expanded. It wasn't diminished. We all surround ourselves with different levels of creativity. But I think that's part of the human evolution. It's also part of the hero's journey. We all want to feel like a hero every day of our lives. It's not just folklore as far as heroes in great religion and great storytelling over the thousands of years. All of us want to feel this self affirmation and this feeling of I've done something for myself or others that makes me feel good about myself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you mentioned the hero section quite a bit, and it almost makes me want to think of a great marketing book, The Story Brand, that talks about this quite a bit. But that's a conversation for another day. Ravi, if people need to reach out to you, where do they find you?
Well, it's easy. I'm on LinkedIn. There is the rksdesign.com website. There's PAAI, the website. We're unwrapping the onion layer by layer. So now people will start to see more and more from that. My emails are easy. It's either Ravi at rksdesign.com, RAVI, or it's Ravi dot Sawhney, SAWHNEY, at PA-AI.ai. I welcome people reaching out. The human interaction with people is great.
In fact, for our audience, is you've had the pleasure of working with Dave Mason from Fleetwood Mac and design a guitar. So quite excited about that. And I think you've had a fascinating 45-year-old design journey and continues and now evolves into a new form of AI with PA.ai, which you mentioned. And people can visit that and or reach out to you directly. Fantastic, Ravi. This has been an incredible conversation. One key thing that the audience should walk away when they finish this podcast around AI, around systems thinking and design, the new era of design. Just give me a couple of words for that.
If you want to have a true moment of truth in what you do, You'd have to take a look at PAAI because it will expand your abilities, your creativity, and more than likely, it'll enhance your cognitive abilities. So we are trying to do the opposite of the cognitive surrender, which leads to cognitive decline. We actually believe we're going to create cognitive enhancement, which is something that I think we all seek. And aside from that, if you're interested in music and guitars, look up RKS Guitars. Look at the website on RKS Design, see the case studies. You can look at PAAI.ai's website and see case studies of successes. And it's there, it's accessible, and hopefully we'll have more entrepreneurship, we'll have more success in the world and less failure.
Well, this is fantastic, Ravi. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you. And I'm sure the audience is going to find a lot of interesting things about you and RKS Designs and, of course, PAI, which is going to give birth to the next revolution on design side. So we can't wait to hear about your journey 6 months or 8 months or 12 months from now. I would love to have you back on our podcast. Thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure.
My pleasure as well. Thank you, Puneet.
Thank you.
Today's core blueprint is clear. Raw AI is ultimately just an engine, and human factors are the definitive steering wheel required to guide it safely. To protect your enterprise from cognitive surrender and avoid contributing to the staggering $2 trillion global cost of failed executions, leadership must stop treating AI as a pure technical challenge and start designing for human adoption. A special thanks to Ravi Sawhney for sharing his 45 years of pioneering product design wisdom with us today. At Kategos, we help enterprises bridge the gap between technological potential and actual strategic impact. We don't just build AI models. We design the organizational structures and team frameworks required to run them safely. If you are ready to move your organization beyond the chat interface and transition into high-impact, proactive applications, visit us at www.kategos.ai to explore our latest white papers and framework strategies. I'm your host, and this has been the Kategos Deep Dive. Until next time, step out of the engine room, take the steering wheel, and start driving real value.